Okay, appear to be recording. Okay, now we see it is, and it was considered groundbreaking. I think it definitely was groundbreaking for me because I had at one time owned the board game Flat Top, and I was very much uh, interested in the war in the Pacific and actually read Bob Toland's version, and I read that when I was probably in the 8th grade, and it was very interesting to me and in the Pacific War. So I've always been fascinated by the Pacific War. I own the Pacific War, which actually you can get this game for free on the Matrix forums. Is type in Google Matrix forums and you will go to the Matrix game, and then I think you have to probably be a member of the forums, but it's actually why I even found their forums to begin with. And so I don't know if this thing is recording when I'm playing or if I'm moving the cursor or what's going on, because sometimes it looks like recording stops when I have not moved the cursor. So I don't know. But anyway, getting back to Matrix forums, if you go on Matrix forums and go all the way to the bottom, you will see a forum that says Matrix free games or whatever version of Pacific War, and then you can download the zip files. They're very small. This one is 600 megabytes, if that, and War and Rush is probably very similar to that. If you know anything, one, you have a cable modem, it takes 2 minutes at most, or probably less than a minute to download these programs. So anyway, the reason I've ever done a playthrough of this game, and I was watching, I did find one video of this game, and it really wasn't much at all. So I'm going to kind of go through the menu options as this video is going along, because I think I was in the video. The first one I want to go to is, okay, you can do center, and it centers the map probably in the center, very center. If you click map, it zooms out. If you were zoomed in, and if you're zoomed out and click map, it'll zoom in. So that's what that button is for. If you click zone, it calculates the air zones that you have control of. And as you can see, I don't have very many air zones right now because I don't have any aircraft controlling those air zones. Now, if you go over here and you look, I do have this big air zone, and that is centered on Clark Field in the Philippines. And if you hit A while you're on it, it'll show you the aircraft that is sitting on their airfield at this point, which it's been bombed to hell and back, so there's not very many there. As you can see, you got the P-35 Republic. It's a very poor plane compared to a lot of the other planes in the war. It is I don't know very much about it, but if I was willing to bet, the P-35 was developed sometime around 1935 or so, and it is very poor. The P-40 has gotten a lot of what they call the Zero that the Japanese flew, and so it's kind of gotten a poor, because it didn't do very well at all against the Japanese, quite up to fight verbal, even though it was probably heavily armored than the Zero was. So it's a serviceable fighter at the beginning of the war, but it eventually becomes outclassed by the following Allied versions of the warplanes. So we want to get this airfield, we want to get these airplanes to a safe place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on that base, and I'm going to air transfer, and I'm going to air transfer a lot of these out of Rangoon, because the Japanese, and it'll probably be a long time before I can take it back. And that's because the Japanese troops attack Rangoon are going to be so much more experienced than the troops I have, that I will not be able to Rangoon once they just put all their forces up against it. So I'm going to transfer all of the air wings out of Rangoon to make sure I don't lose these air wings, because once you lose these air wings, you don't get them back. You can't create a air wing. Well, I take that at some point, and the if an air wing is creator game, the logic for replace. And my neighbor just came home, so I'm not going to out because I think these walls are pretty thin, and the volume on your computer all the way up, you should be able to hear me. Now, as I was saying, you cannot create an air wing, but the computer, some of these, if you lose them, but what would be you really want to save them because it helps you war effort, obviously. So let's transfer as many of these as we can. And as you can see, I only have one left that it would not transfer, so I'm going to air transfer. Now, how I'm doing this is I've selected the city, and you select the city by left clicking on it. So I'm hovering, I left click it to select it, which is Visakhapatnam, or however the hell you pronounce that. And so let's go back to this one, Calcutta. Very easy. Everybody knows Calcutta. So I've selected the city, and then you left click on it again. Oh, wait a minute. There's a task force there. So if I am in display airfield, I can left click on it again and do air transfer, because when it says display airfield, and you left click on it, it'll bring up. So I am going to transfer this Blenheim 4 wing out of Rangoon into Calcutta, and there it is. And to find out what's in there, you want to see display airfield, and then you right click it, and that brings up the airfield and any air wings at that airfield. And it also tells you your fuel and supply, which is something very important as well. Now, what are some of the other things we're going to do? But let's just check again. Okay, their airfield is empty. They got fuel $19,999 and supply of 20,000. That supply is pretty much gone. I mean, let's see. Now we're on display airfield. Let's display task forces, because I can see there's at least one task force 50 surface combat. And let's see. And that's the battleship Prince of Wales, and the battle cruiser, the Repulse, and then some destroyers. And its commander is Vice Admiral T. Phillips. Now, when you're in a surface combat, any task force, you can click F1. You can just, I think, left click on it, and you can bring up all available air leaders. Well, there's only one. Not air leaders. This is and see, he has a naval rating of 6, an air rating of 1 if he was an aircraft carrier. And we'll look at Bill Halsey, or William Halsey, and you'll see how his rankings are. His land is 1 because he's not a land admiral. He's an admiral, and his aggressiveness is 8. I'm pretty sure that's aggressiveness. 8. This guy's pretty aggressive. And so we want to get him the hell out of Dodge. And the way I'm going to do that is, what I did was I'm on the task force right now, and then I'm going to left click again, and it brings up a menu for that task force. And it also brings up somewhere you can create a task force or replenish it, or anything else. And there is the air transfer, but this is a task force. So we're going to set the destination of this task force, and I'm going to go completely away from the Japanese Air Forces, because if you try to go anywhere else, those Japanese will react to you and will sink you. Now, destination, let's do that again. You set the destination. This is a little trick. And you set it to Broome, and you go, okay, he's going to go towards Broome. And then you set the base. You don't want to set the base to Broome. You want to set it to Darwin or Perth. And the reason that is because they're really, so if I had set his destination to Broome and his base to Broome, he would have stayed here during the act of hit by airplanes. It seems to me that airplanes will more likely attack you in the active phase if you're just sitting there. So in the active phase, he's actively moving out of range of the Japanese airplanes, and that took the hell out of the way to get the hell out of Dodge, because it's lucky that the battleship, just pure luck if he survives. And as you see, we did survive. So the next thing I want to see what the port looks like. Okay, the port has a light cruiser, a light cruiser, a light cruiser, a bunch of destroyers, a destroyer escort, and then AP. And an AP is a ship that will transport troops. So if you got troops that you want to move, you're going to need an AP or an AP type vehicle. APDs, APs, and LSTs are troop movement vehicles. They're troop transports. And then the MCS is a cargo ship. So this is what I have at the Port of Singapore. So I want to select, do the left click on it. I'm in the port phase, but I think I could have done create a task force no matter what. And I want to make a cargo task force. And I'm not going to auto select as I mentioned yesterday. And then I'm going to click on this button, left click on, will bring up all the ships in the port, and I can click on as up to 15 ships. I say ships, but it counts a stack as one ship. So in the task force creation phase, so I can click on all of these, and then I would still have room for 6 more stacks of ships. If it's MCS, it could be, stacks of 6, 7, 8, or 9, but I would fill this up with 15 icons of ships with however many are in the stack. So I only had 9 quote unquote stacks. Of course, some of them are just single ships, and then some are 4 ships. And so that's done. I can right click it, and then what I want to do is just kind of, now there are 2 task forces in Singapore right now, and if you right click on it, it'll bring up one. This is the one with the battleship and the battle cruiser, and this is the one I just created. So we want to open this one up and take a look at it. It doesn't look like it's full of cargo or anything, so, and I don't think it has a leader now. I'm not going to cannibalize that leader from the surface ship. So I want to load the TF, and I'm going to load it with, it doesn't really matter. The Allied side and the Japanese side end up with more than they need at any given time, but you still want to make sure you just fill it up on the way out, just because, I mean, what's the point in just wasting it? So I fill it up, and it shows now cargo mix, and that's a mix of supply and fuel. So I'm going to do the same thing with it. I'm going to set the destination of Broome, and I'm going to set the base as Darwin. And I'm going to do that for all of the ships. I might not do it on this video, but I am going to do it for all of the ships. And here we have a bunch of damaged ships. Another trick when you're creating a task force: do not mix undamaged ships with damaged ships, because the damaged ship, as you can see, their maximum speed is 4. This for these destroyers. You could scuttle it, but I don't really like to do that. So what I'm going to do is make a task force with this, which is a kind of a refueler, resupplier, airplane tender type thing that you can use to put supply for aircraft carriers on. And actually, oops, let's go back. Actually, I think, nope. See, I think you can put 30 aircraft on this, and it will resupply an aircraft carrier that's on station. So let's make a task force of cargo, and then we're just going to put, it has a damage of 2. It's relatively undamaged. They have a damage of 9. I think 10 is the fastest it will go, so it's relatively undamaged. We're going to put all three of those together. We're going to load it with a mixed supply, and then we're going to get them the hell out of Dodge as well. Now, some of these are still going to get killed because the Japanese are actively hunting them. So just prepare yourself for that eventuality. Let's see, a port. I know there's some more ships around here. Here's an import of the Panay. There's one carrier. Not carrier, cruiser. Heavy cruiser, the Houston. We're going to get them the hell out. So we're going to create a task force, and it's a service combat ship, and it's only the one ship, so I'm just going to create it, get it the hell out of Dodge. If I can select that base. Okay. Let's see, port. I guess you can do this. No. Next. That was it. Next. So this port has. So if you click next, if you're in display port and you click next, it will cycle through every port. And this port has some destroyers and a light cruiser actually. So let's create task force service combat port. Let's replenish them. I think they were already filled, but replenish just tops off their fuel and their aircraft if they're an aircraft carrier. So we got them out of Dodge. Let's go back to display port. Here's another one. Has 4 destroyers. We'll get them the hell out of Dodge as well. And so as you can tell, the first turn takes a long time. Even though this is a very scaled down version of War in the Pacific. War in the Pacific's first turn, from what I understand, takes about 4 or 5 hours. Because you're doing so many different things for so many different bases and so many different other things. So let's go back. Next port is over here in the Dutch East Indies. Look at that. A lot of juicy targets there. So let's create task force. We're going to make it a cargo. No. And then we're just going to use up every one of these. And then we're going to load this TF. Wait a minute. Oh, so see, I actually just. Oh, I didn't. So there are two task forces already in this port. So we're just going to select each one and get them the hell out. And right click and then select, and then we'll get them the hell out. So you can see you got to do this for a lot of ports and a lot of task forces. Get them out. And then this one we are going to oops, I clicked utilities. I meant to click on the actual ship. So we're going to load this TF, mix supply, boom, boom, set destination, and your supply ships are very important. You want to save as many as possible of those. And, well, you really want to save pretty much every ship, because every ship is a cost towards the victory point. So let's go back to display port. Next, there's a little, I don't know if that's a cruiser. Yeah, it's a light cruiser. I want to get him the hell out of the way too. Wait a minute. I have to create, and I'm sure there is I'm sure there's a hotkey or a keyboard shortcut that I'm just not using, because I've always been a mouse person and not a shortcut person. I know that it's probably counterintuitive, probably just because I've self-taught myself. So see there, I didn't go to those places. I came down to here to Rockhampton, and Brisbane, because I really just want everybody to go as south as possible. Strategy wise, the Japanese are coming from this area. If you know anything about the war in the Pacific in the 1940s and World War II, you know that the Japanese took Rabaul, took probably took all of these. I don't know for a fact, but they did take Rabaul. They did take most of these islands. Guadalcanal is right there, and Guadalcanal was a huge battle, um, naval battle and land battle. They had all sorts of nicknames for it and everything else. And if you've had an old movie, I think called Guadalcanal Diary or something like that, and it's about the Battle of Guadalcanal in 1942, I believe. So strategy-wise, what you will want to do is you want to, if you know anything about World War II in the Pacific, you also know that there was a battle where the Japanese tried to take Port Moresby, and it was a carrier battle with prevented the Japanese from actually taking Port Moresby. And if you do, what is it? No. Let's do map, that's it. And then if you do land travel, as you can see, if you control Port Moresby, then you can move troops into Port Moresby, march them to Kokoda, then march them to Buna and Gona. Let's go F3 again. Yeah, you can march them to Buna and go Gona. Really crazy names. But also from Kokoda, you march to Leh, and then eventually to Madang. And my strategy will be to keep Port Moresby in my hands, and then the Japanese will take a lot of these up to probably Leh, and my strategy will be to move troops up. I think this is the island of New Guinea. Move troops up the island of New Guinea to, I think this is the farthest north that they can get, and then from that point you can start building the airfields up and putting air wings in here, and they can do a lot of damage to ships and to the port and airfields, and it will become very expensive for the Japanese to keep Rabaul, and that's truck, and it'll be very expensive for them, and it'll get to the point where they can't keep a lot of these bases supplied. So that's my strategy going forward into 1942. I've already, I think, we want to get these air combat guys. We don't want to go to Hawaii because I think they've put submarines around Hawaii. So we're going to go to Johnson Island. That's always my go-to for my air combat task forces. So, and once there, then we will build a very strong aircraft carrier force. Or, well, it's not that strong compared to the Japanese, but it is strong. Okay, as you can see, this task force, this aircraft carrier task force, is commanded by William W. Halsey. William Halsey. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. William Halsey. And right now, because it's at sea, I guess they're not allowing us to actually change the commander. But once we're in port, it'll allow us to change the commander. And then I want to also go to San Diego and create. And this is the kind of combat forces, task forces you can create. Air combat, which obviously it's for aircraft carriers. Escort carrier, I think that surface combat makes sense. It's a task force you'd build with just surfers. Bombardment, and the only reason they make a distinction between surface combat and bombardment is that I think bombardment is not the surface combat unit attack other surface combat units. in near them. So that's why I think they make that distinguishment. Cargo routine convoy system use those cargo ships to move supply around the map for you, but sometimes you want to, and transport is for troops you want to use. Replenish is already a little bit was if you have a ship on station, steam and replenish task force to evacuation. I've never used that. I don't know what. I mean, it seems so. And motor torpedo boat that much. So anyway, I'm in San Diego. I want to because I know that there is an aircraft carrier sitting in dock. So I'm going to take the Saratoga, take this, and I guess I'll take the destroyers. And what I'm going to do is, because we're not really close to any Japanese bases, I'm going to set the destination and the base at one base, and it's going to be that base, Cook Island. And the reason I'm using Cook Island is because it's the very furthest away from the Japanese, so I doubt they're going to have submarines in the pathway of them going to Cook Island. But it's probably not going to get to Cook Island on one turn, so it'll probably be down in this area somewhere. And from here, I will probably change its destination and make it go to Christmas Island or Palmyra or one of those places, because ideally what I want to do is get it up to Johnston Island. And I think in some games I've gone to just the Hawaii base, and I haven't had too much trouble, but I don't want to lose an area, so I'm going to make him go to Cook Island. This is a sub. He's in his patrol zone, so I'm not going to move him. Sub. These are Japanese task forces that I've seen. And one thing I want to do, and I always say one thing I want to do, but one thing I want to do is I want to see if I can get this, the combat troops. So I'm going to click W here and look at the combat troops. I want to get the Philippine Division and the 4th Marine Regiment out of there. And I don't know if I used to be able to do it in the SSI version of Pacific War, but this is called the Matrix version of Pacific War, and there are some slight differences, that sometimes you can't do some of the things that you were used to be able to do. But what I used to be able to do is, if you want to get these out of here, the way you would do it, if it's possible, is you want to activate them. So to activate a unit, and when you activate a unit, it's to fight. If you want to fight the other forces, if you activate your units by doing this, left clicking, and then you can press A or click the rectangle with activate in it. So now both of these two units are active. Now what you used to be able to do is click the HQ and click get transport. And it works. And it did. If you might not have seen the message, it said getting transports or something like that. So now if I click P, I have troop transports in Bataan, where those are. And if I click on these, sometimes you can, I can't get any more. If you have more in the pool, you could say, oh, I do have some in the pool. So I can get pool. If you get pool, it'll add to your stack there. So what I want to do at this point is C, and I'm going to create a transport. And I'm going to click no, and I'm going to go to port, and I want to pick all of these because I want to get all of them out of there, and I want to use them to get. Now, the problem, let's load this task force. Load task force. And I'm going to click combat forces. Now I'm going to click the Philippine Division, and it'll tell you if those stacks can hold it. And right now, this stack can hold 165% of whatever unit I just, because the Philippine Division is not fully formed yet. It's still under strength. So I can fit it all on this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that there. So the Philippine now on these troop transports. And I'm going to do it for the 4th Marine Division. And see, the 4th Marine Division is a lot smaller, or regiment is a lot smaller, so it'll fit. These two would hold 617% of the troops in the 4th Marine Division. Should have had 6 4th Marine Division on these 2 ships. So now that's full. And L is for the shift. The keyboard shortcut L is to load your task force. So I want to put mix supply in the cargo ships, and then I'm going to, and if we are fortunate, these combat units are going to be saved. And once they're fully supplied, to save some divisions. The Philippine divisions that are on this island, and actually, actually, there's an AP unit there, so I can actually save some of these. And what I want to do is save the 8th Infantry Division of Australia. That's Australian troops, not Austria. What's the movie, Dumb and Dumber? Say the girl says, I'm from Austria, and he says, put another shrimp on the Barbie. No, this is Australia, not Austria. So I want to load those troops onto this, those AP units. I don't know if you saw it, but combat forces, and we're going to click. We can either click on it or click A. And as you can see, it would only take 49%. The mistake here is to left click and pick up 49%, because what you would do is the computer would automatically, I mean by that is, watch this. If I split this, it says divide. Now it would pick up this 2 of 8th, the 2nd of the 8th Infantry Regiment, which will never get big again. As big as it could, or as big as the infantry division. If you save with the name 8th Infantry Division, it will flesh out again, even if this regiment is lost. So we want to save that one. So let's try to load that. So load combat forces 8th Infantry Division, 99%. So you're kind of in the same situation. So what you want to do is you would divide it one more time, and so now you have the 2nd of the 8th and the 4th of the 8th, and that's an infantry battalion, and that is an infantry regiment, but you still have the nominal name of 8th Infantry Division, Australia. So then you can load combat forces, and now you can fit the 8th Infantry Division onto that cargo ship. Make sure that it is destination Broome, home base Darwin. So now you can save that unit, and even though it's size at this point, and so that's how you save your infantry division from Singapore. Now the rest of these guys are cooked. They're gone. And that's that. Another thing you can do, and this, some people say this is gamey. Manila is the headquarters of the Southwest Pacific. So what I want to do is come down here, and I want to choose something like Fiji Islands. Now see, it is part of the CMF, and I want to change its headquarter. And the way you do that is you left click on HQ. Wait a minute, make sure. Click on HQ. And then change base. And then you want to attach it to the Southwest Pacific. That's Manila. So now it's part of Manila. Then what you do is you would click on the HQ button again and relocate HQ, and it'll relocate it to the Fiji headquarters. Some people consider that gamey. I think that in actuality, because MacArthur. So no, that's up to you. I don't think it's as gamey as some people think. You really need as many headquarters because you need these preparation points. If your preparation points are 0, you can't do anything. You'll have huge losses of readiness in your troops, huge losses of readiness in your airplanes. So you really don't want to do. I really don't want to lose headquarters. Another headquarter I move is the headquarters in Singapore, HQ Malaya, and same reason. You don't want to lose the general either. And if we had left the headquarters for Manila there, we would lose. Well, we could change the the commander, or we could remove the commander actually, if we do that. So new leader. And as you can see, I could choose MacArthur again. And his aggressive is a 9. His land rating is 6. And air is 3. And naval is 2. But I'm not going to change him because he is in charge of this. If he was in Manila, I would change it. And I would change it to no leader. And that's the way you can save your leader somehow, some way. Well, and I think a place to stop. And as you can see, the first turn, a little bit of work. And actually, I'm wondering if I can save any of these Dutch troops. Although I don't know how good they are. I think you could save some of those troops, but it might be a little bit risky. And there are a lot of other things that I still need to do on the first turn that I haven't done that I do want to make sure that I do. One of them is I want to start moving these units. I don't have troop transport, so I'm going to march them up the coast of Australia to Cairns, and from Cairns I'm going to transport them to Port Moresby because that's the air base and land base I'm going to build up for my base of operations against this whole area, and eventually Guadalcanal as well. And once you get those two back in your hands, Guadalcanal back in your hands, and you keep Port Moresby, then you can start really doing some offensive operations in this area here, and hopefully you keep all these islands. That will be it for this turn. Still got a lot of things I want to do for the first turn. I don't think I can move this one yet because it's attached to the 4th Army, and I think the 4th Army is not allowed to move out of the West Coast, but eventually you get combat units entering into San Francisco, and also you have these units. And if you really want to strip everybody down, you can take the 2nd Defense Battalion and the 4th Defense Battalion and the 3rd Defense Battalion and the 6th Defense Battalion and use them if you want to, but it's up to you. And another way you can do it is if you wanted to use the 6th Defense Battalion as part of your offensive combat, is leave the 1/6 of the Defense Battalion in Midway and take the 6th Defense, the full 6th Defense Battalion with you, and then once it gets fully supplied again, it will build back up to 386 or whatever it is, and that's one way you can have a lot. Remember, but we will cover that in later turns, because what I do, how I capture this is I divide units a lot and take half of them and attack a next. So I have them all spread out, because another thing that the routine convoy subroutine will only supply bases that actually have land units. So if you have all these bases and this is empty and doesn't have any land units, you're going to keep fuel of 10 and supply of 100. You might get a couple of hundred. But if you have a combat unit by the subroutine convoys, another way to up your supply. So anyway, that is the end of the episode.